Holy Gospel according to John. Glory to you, O Lord. After this, Jesus went to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, also called the Sea of Tiberias. A large crowd kept following him, because they saw the signs that he was doing for the sick. Jesus went up the mountain and sat down there with his disciples. Now the Passover, the festival of the Jews, was near. When he looked up and saw a large crowd coming toward him, Jesus said to Philip, "Where are we to buy bread for these people to eat?" He said this to test him, for he himself knew what he was going to do. Philip answered him, 6 months' wages would not be enough bread for each of them to get a little. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, "There is a boy here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what are they among so many people?" Jesus said, "Make the people sit down." Now there was a great deal of grass in the place, so they sat down, about 5,000 in all. Then Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed them to those who were seated, so also the fish, as much as they wanted. When they were satisfied, he told the disciples, "Gather up the fragments left over, so that nothing may be lost." So they gathered them up, and from the fragments of the 5 barley loaves left by those who had eaten, they filled 12 baskets. When the people saw the sign that he had done, they began to say, "This is indeed the prophet who is to come into the world." When Jesus realized that they were about to come and take him by force to make him king, he withdrew again to the mountain by himself. When evening came, his disciples went down to the sea, got in the boat, and started across the sea to Capernaum. Now it was dark, and Jesus had not yet come to them. The sea became rough because a strong wind was blowing. When they had rowed about 3 or 4 miles, they saw Jesus walking on the sea and coming near the boat, and they were terrified. But he said to them, "It is I. Do not be afraid." Then they wanted to take him into the boat, and immediately the boat reached land, toward which they were going. This is the gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, O Christ. Please be seated. Grace and peace to you on this day from God our Father and our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. Come and go. Worship and serve. Eat your fill. And go feed others. It's really that simple. So this week on our mission trip to New Haven, we received a lot of hospitality. First, from all of you for your prayers and support, so thank you for that. But also, I don't know if you knew this, but after worship on Sunday, Penny and David Hine had prepared us lunch before we left. And Nancy Teolis, who also brought snacks for this morning, helped serve it. After we had gotten to New Haven and went to worship on the green and came back, Paul and Sandy Linton had brought us dinner. And it was so abundant, we ate it as a snack each night. Monday, after a hard day's work and a hot, sunny day, we used the gift that Lilo Hess had provided for us, which is her tradition, and we went and got ice cream. Tuesday night, where we were hosted at Bethesda Lutheran Church in New Haven, they had a kind of a summer picnic. They called it Hamburger and Hymns. It was really fun. We should really do this. It was great. I'm going to skip a day and come back to it. Thursday, we were going to end with lunch at Pepe's, and lo and behold, Stephanie Scambati showed up and bought us lunch. Abundance. Just a lot of abundance. Using that the gifts that we've been given, the joy that we have, the community that we try to share and live in, all in the presence of Christ. It really is, it's that simple. Eat and be filled and go and feed others. In this gospel reading, we catch Jesus just after they've crossed the Sea of Galilee. Now, if you remember back a few weeks, we've been in Mark's gospel. We just transferred over to John for a month or so. But the story is in about the same place. It says the word had spread because he had been healing people, that he'd been tending to the sick. But you know from Mark's reading, which we've had the last few weeks, they've been doing more than that. They've been helping the sick, but they've also been renouncing evil, and they've also been preaching. He comes to that place, and it's getting to be nighttime, and all these people are hungry from the day, and who knows, maybe they were going to go find provision in a nearby town or something. Maybe they had brought a snack along, nobody really knows. And the problem is presented. What should we do? The miracle is interesting, and I think the miracle is actually the least interesting part of it. Whether Jesus took that little boy's lunch and actually multiplied it so there was so much they didn't even know what to do with at the end, 12 baskets full, or whether his generosity of sharing that so inspired others that they looked in their bags and thought they had some stuff to share too, and that was also used as really the small part of it. The big part of it is, in the presence of Jesus, there is abundance, a lot of abundance. So eat and be filled, and then go and feed others. It really is that simple. So I told you about all the days we ate, which I'm pretty good at. But Wednesday night, we did something really special. So I'm sure you'll hear a lot more stories from this mission trip over the next few weeks. I'm sure Charlie will share some things as well, and we're going to present in a couple of weeks also. But I want to tell you about one thing. So we went to this picnic in a park in kind of the crummy part of town. And it was sponsored by this church, Christ Presbyterian Church in the Hill, in an area with low income, lots of crime, all the problems that go along with that. Now this little church, by all standards, is struggling. I mean, it's small, they're renting a place to meet at, the rent went up, they're looking for a new place to relocate. There's, on Sunday morning, Pastor Chip Anderson, who's the pastor there, he told me they have, 20, 30 people or so. They're drastically underfunded, they're trying to survive, but I will tell you, there was a lot of life there. Because they decided a few years ago what they were going to do, is that they wanted to be part of the neighborhood. Not just to be a destination in the neighborhood or a place you could go in the neighborhood, but to actually be connected to the people in the neighborhood. So every Wednesday night, rain or shine, and we were supposed to have pretty dramatic thunderstorms on Wednesday night. They don't cancel. They go to Trowbridge Park and bring a barbecue. And it really is the simplest thing. They have 2 tents. One tent is where they have the grill and they do up the dogs and burgers. And the other tent is where they have the tables where you pick up all the sides and your cutlery and your plate, and that's it. But something is also different about this, which is also great. It's come and be filled, and it's go and serve and feed others, but it's rooted in something. So often, I think when we think of doing these service trips or programs, we think about what it is we bring to it, or what it is we're going to do, or what we might be able to share ourselves. But when we gathered, Pastor Chip said something really quite wonderful. There were about 80 of us or so kind of gathered in that park. And as he was welcoming everyone to dinner, he said, thank you for welcoming us as your guest. After all, this is all of our neighborhood. We all live here. So thank you for letting us use this space. And also, God is here already. We're not bringing anything new, but we just want to be a part of it, alongside with you. Listen to that. God's already here and present. And we just come alongside what God is already doing. Come and eat and go and feed others. It's that simple. We had a very plain worship service, if you could call it that. He pulled out his Bible. He read from Luke the story of the lost coin and the lost sheep. He simply just asked people, have you ever felt lost? People were nodding, yes, of course. And he talked about that and talked about a God who comes to seek the lost no matter what, including every single one of us gathered here. And then he prayed. Thank God for the food. Thank God for the gathering of all the people there. Thank God for the church that showed up too, and for us as guests. And then we simply just enjoyed each other for the next hour or hour and a half that we were there. I was really proud of our kids who, the moment we got out the door of our vehicles, started either playing with the kids or meeting the people that had gathered, some of the adults, or getting to work on serving the food. Pastor Chip complimented them on that several times, because sometimes it's a little scary to go to a new place, and yet there they were, having been fed themselves to go and feed others. It really is that simple. So this text presents a pretty good problem, right in the early stages of it. Two perspectives on what it is we should do and how it is we might live, having encountered this Christ that's in our midst. The first is Philip's perspective. 6 months' wages would never be enough to give everybody just a little bit. And don't you hear that in your ear constantly? That you're not enough, or that you'll never have enough, or that you can never do enough. And we hear that among ourselves, not just in our lives, but in the lives we share as a church. We do that sometimes. We don't have enough to do that, or we don't have the right people to do that, or who's responsible for this other thing. But it's never really about that, is it? It's about standing in the presence of Christ, where there is always abundance, because that's the other voice in this text. Even though he doesn't say anything, it's the little boy who brings his lunch and just says, "Can you use this?" So what I'd like to ask you to think about and consider is where you sit on this grassy mountainside, gathered around this Christ who is present here among us. As we come gathered, hungry and tired, and at times broken. Do we come thinking to ourselves, I'm not enough. I can't do enough. I'll never have enough. Or can we come together and gather around again to the one who feeds us, to the one who says, you are loved and you are valued, the one who sends us out to go feed others once again. It really is that simple.